Boom. Hello, Ruthanna. We are going to get started. Thanks for joining. So welcome to the True Teacher Services virtual information session. Thank you for joining. Others might be coming in, so we'll get underway. But first, we're just going to go over a few house cleaning rules. If you could, just stay muted at all times. And you can keep your video off. It usually makes for a better connection. You can type your questions at any time in the chat box, which is going to be on your far right in your screen in the Google Hangout. And to view my screen, you can click in the bottom right on me to see my screen and be able to view that the whole time as I am screen sharing here. And then you can expect us to review the questions and answers at the end of the virtual information session. So you can type those questions at any time. Don't hesitate. Feel free and go for it. Okay. So we're going to get underway here. And first thing we're going to talk about are the benefits of teaching abroad. So the two biggest components of teaching abroad are professional and personal growth. It could be the first teaching opportunity or job opportunity you've had after graduation, with salary and benefits, etc. And there comes a lot of other benefits, not just with professionally speaking, but personally, that you might not receive in a job in your home country. So we're going to talk about some of those different things. And if you look at the pictures here, you can see a lot of the things that people get involved with when they're teaching abroad, such as travel, friends, different expat groups, learning the language, the food, saving money. So there's all different things that you can do. You can be teaching your kids, your students, a lot of them very excited to learn. And you can just see all the different activities that everybody joins and takes part in. Learning how to make the food, as well as obviously tasting it. Traveling many places to different beautiful locations. Having your own apartment. Learning a cultural defense kind of activity, as well as learning the local language, either at a local university or with a language exchange partner. So lots of different things you can get involved in, that's for sure. So some of the biggest components of teaching abroad that people enjoy are the salary, housing, which is either completely paid or your salary is much higher. So you either get a housing stipend or your large salary pays for housing, as well as airfare reimbursement and insurance, health insurance, as well as different bonuses at the end of your contract and paid vacation. So there's a lot of different things that make up your experience. It's not just, hey, you're getting paid to teach, but there's these great benefits that come with it. Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about the average salaries. So China specifically, we'll talk about this location because it is one of our largest locations. Depending on the type of job that you can have, you can make, it's very, very diverse. You can make anywhere from 1,000 USD a month working and teaching about 15 hours a week, essentially just working 3 hours a day. And you could work in a job where you're making close to 3,500 to 4,000 US dollars per month. It all depends on the location, if it's a first-tier city or not, the type of school, and your experience and background and qualifications. So all these things, are factored in. A lot of teachers ask how much you can save, and we always say anywhere, and you might laugh at this, but between 0 and 60% of your salary. Some teachers really, really push as hard as they can to save as much as they can. Other teachers have a more relaxed agenda. It might be their first job out of school, and they're essentially just going to have a great time. They don't plan on saving a whole lot. They're spending their money on all different sorts of activities and just having an amazing year abroad. We usually say if you're the average kind of person, you might save about 30% of your salary if you're really not trying that hard. But it all depends on your financial goals, that's for sure. Okay, we'll talk about life as an expat teacher. So the most important frequently asked questions, let's pose some FAQs here. So a few of them include, do I need to speak the local language? How safe, is teaching abroad in Asia? Will I be able to communicate with people back home, have internet connection and be able to call them and get in contact with them? What will the culture shock be like? I realize I'm going to another country that's very different. Okay, so we're going to talk about all of these different things. So the first item, do you need to speak the local language? And we always, always say, no, you do not need to speak the local language. You can go to school every day, work with clients, and speak in English the whole time, speak with other foreign teachers, speak with native Chinese or Korean or local teachers. Your students, by and large, many are high achieving, many might be lower achieving, but their comprehensions skills are pretty good or great. Or some students might not have such great comprehension skills, and they're very beginning type learners. So it all depends. But at the same time, you're speaking English the whole time. It's not like you have to be fluent in Mandarin or the local language. However, you do have a life outside of school, of course, and there will be times where you'll be challenged. But the easiest thing, and what we recommend the most, is try to pick up a language learning book. You can get them on eBay or Amazon, very like a cultural guide for the country that you're going to. Lonely Planet has great guides. The Pimsleur approach is a great language learning software. We recommend that much more over the Rosetta Stone because you can really learn conversations very well. So the other thing is when you arrive, if you don't know the language, you will pick up on many key words, how to say thank you, please, more, how much is this, go straight, turn right, turn left, stop. So you'll learn all these things and you'll be able to communicate in few words with those who don't speak English. And then you'll meet some people that do speak English. And of course, teaching, like we said, it's, you're feeling very comfortable speaking your language in full English immersion during the week at school. Safety. Safety is a big question. If you're from the Western world where, for example, in America, where crime rates are extremely high in our major cities, a little different from Canada, maybe other parts of Europe, maybe perhaps for England, for example, where guns aren't as, readily available. There's a lot of gun crime. There's a lot of drug and gang crime and violence in the States, in major cities. And to be very forthright, in China and East Asia especially, Southeast Asia is a little bit different, you're not going to experience the type of physical assaults and different crime that you would experience in the States or in many Western countries. It's extremely safe. Women often, young ladies especially, often say when they're out at night, late at night, they don't feel like they have to look over their shoulder because someone will harm them. The safety aspect is a lot nicer. We once had a teacher tell us a story when they were in Shanghai on a subway. They had there was a group of around 10-year-olds riding the subway together, about 3 of them, a couple boys and a girl. And people, didn't seem to look at them with much care. But this expat teacher of ours looked at these children like, I can't believe they're riding the subway by themselves. So that's definitely not an issue. Very, very safety. And you can always get in contact with the emergency contact numbers of your consulate For example, the United States has a Department of State travel program, which they send warnings and announcements, and helpful embassy information. So if you want more on that, we have the link with those details if you want to get in touch with the embassy for your country when you go abroad. So we will continue to the next point, communicating with people back home. So when you're communicating with people, there are countless ways. You're going to get internet set up in your apartment. You have easy access to cafes, for example, although Wi-Fi might not always be super strong. With your cell phone from home, you could use, or a tablet from home, or a phone that you buy after you get a bank account set up with your phone, with your school. You can get a local cell phone, a local smartphone if you'd like. But you can have the ability to bring your computer into a cafe, into your apartment, into school, or a device, and message your family from home, either via email, call them on Skype, message them on apps like WeChat and Kakao Talk. They're messaging apps where you can send photos, pictures, videos. You can do walkie-talkies, free calls, all these different things where you can really stay in communication with your family. We had a girl that we placed in the south of China before, and she said I was able to speak to my mom every day and just say good morning and good night to her. Which gave her a tremendous peace of mind through a free texting app. So, there's very easy ways to do so, and to be in contact with your family. Perhaps one of the greatest ways is through blogs, is communicating with family from back home. So you'll see on this next page here, this is an example of one of our teachers who's actually right now currently teaching at an IB school in northeastern Beijing. And Zach right here is having a great experience. And here are just some clips from his actual blog from WordPress. And it's a free, you can literally go on WordPress.com or Weebly.com. Vizio, I believe, is another one. And you can just simply and easily start your own website for free and have all this information up. Send your family the link. They can bookmark it. They can save the link and go up and see any updates on your blog each week, each month. And this is one of the greatest ways to show family and friends at home what you're doing without having to feel the need to contact everybody at home and say, because you're going to be busy. You're going to be teaching. You're going to have a social life. You're going to be very active. So it's going to be hard to stay in communication with everyone. So, even close friends or any extended friends can, or family members can check out your blog, read about some of the places you're going to, about the students you're teaching, and just keep in mind when you're going back home and you're teaching at home or you're working at home, if you have a blog and a link to that blog, what a tremendous advantage it would be to show future employers. And we validated that specifically with 2 assistant principals in the Philadelphia area. And they said if they can see a blog that looks professional, that looks like this person is really learning and enjoying their experience, I want a teacher like that, or I want someone like that in my office who is a leader, who can live and adapt in another country and culture. So that's much more powerful than just essentially saying, oh yeah, I had a great experience teaching abroad and I did a lot of great things. It was great. Yeah, thanks. End of story. So definitely a blog is very, very powerful in communication, for communication, I should say. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about here on this next slide, the phases of culture shock. So, this is one of the biggest questions or thoughts, sometimes fears, of course, for a lot of teachers. What is the culture shock going to be like? And we're going to talk about a few phases of culture shock. But what you have to realize, I use this word all the time because it's so powerful, I believe. And, we at True Teacher Services really believe in this word optimism. If you're optimistic in different situations and you can adapt to certain things with a smile on your face, then you are going to be very receptive to other cultures. If you're not, and you're pessimistic, and you look at things and you're judgmental, for example, why is there so much traffic? Why is this man carrying a huge, container with a bunch of bags on it? What kind of a job is that? So if you're judgmental like that, instead of like, wow, look at this guy, he's strong, or wow, it's a really busy part of the city. I've never lived in such a busy city like this. There's a lot of cars and it's very active. There's a lot of people out and about. You have to look at it in the right way. And if you do, you'll be handling culture shock much more easily, and it'll be a much smoother transition, and you'll be excited throughout your year abroad instead of very pessimistic and wondering why things aren't like they are at home. So we're going to dive into these phases. So we have a few different phases of culture shock. So the first one is initial euphoria, and that's essentially you're just being excited. You've made it to your host country. You can't believe you're actually there. You look at different similarities, and you might think, hey, things aren't so different. There's a McDonald's on the corner. There's a 7-Eleven. Wow, Baskin Robbins. I didn't know they had one here. So you think of these different things that you're used to at home, and you're like, I'm going to stay here for the whole period. I'm excited. It's going to be a great year. So then the second phase, we call it the irritation and hostility phase. Gradually you begin to lose focus on the differences, and some small things might get blown out of proportion, and then you realize, wow, this is shocking me. This is culture shock. You think a lot of things are strange. People putting different things on French fries, or eating a hot dog with a huge plate of ketchup, mustard, and onions on the side as a side dish. Just these different things that might bother you and you might think is so strange. But at the same time, if you're going to let that get to you, then you're going to experience culture shock in a very negative way. If you smile about it and say, hey, that's what these people do because this is a different country, they live differently, I'm in their country, okay, they're my host, I need to change the way I think about it. Okay, so you could kind of get past that stage. The third part of culture shock we call gradual adjustment. You essentially made it through the hardest part, and basically you think you've averted different crises. You slowly begin to feel normal, and that you're becoming very comfortable. You get into a good routine. You're able to interpret like cultural, cues. You don't feel as isolated, so you're able to laugh and feel good and get excited. And then the last phase is the adaptation and biculturalism. You begin to really feel at home. You're excited. You get to meet the locals and feel like you're part of the neighborhood. You're meeting new friends. So there's definitely all these different things that make part of culture shock. But a lot of teachers say, hey, I really didn't experience it that bad. The language barrier in some parts of the city or when I traveled was a challenge perhaps at times. But besides that, I felt great. I felt, like I was respected. I acted very nicely, and I was, received very well by the locals and things like that. So it all depends what kind of person you are. Okay, some other possible challenges that we like to talk about are the professional and personal. So, professionally, being an employee in a new culture, there are some things that you're going to learn, but they're really interesting. For example, shaking hands versus bowing in most East Asian cultures. Taking your shoes off versus wearing your shoes in your classrooms, and instead maybe wearing slippers, depending on the school that you're working at. But a lot of these things, you're like, hey, you know what? I'm living in this culture. This is what they do. I kind of like that. That makes sense. Wearing slippers, yeah, and keeping the floor clean. Why don't we do that? I'm gonna judge our culture. Why don't we do that? So different things that you might, be challenged with, but you'll learn. You'll be taught. And if you make a mistake, everybody understands that you're new, and you'll learn quickly. Okay. Um, we'll talk about another part, the personal. The East versus West personal relationship, the age hierarchy. Really respecting old elders and not challenging them. Different things that you're going to learn. So the other part, a big challenge that we'd like to talk about is combating homesickness. So that's one of the biggest things. And we have 2 words for you: stay active. And what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is not going home after classes, sitting in your apartment, not doing anything. You want to be very active. You want to go out with your coworkers. You want to ask some of your foreign teachers and do research. Ask some of your native teachers and do research as to where some different groups are, maybe expat meetups, local language exchanges where locals go to learn English and then you go to learn the local language, at restaurants and different things like that, joining sports teams, joining meetup.com groups where people go on trips and have a lot of fun. So you want to do research beforehand when you know where you're getting placed, and really get into it and take action and get excited and take control about what you're going to be doing, instead of taking a back seat and taking several months to be active in your city and in your country, and then realize, hey, I was really lonely for 4 months, when instead you could have taken action after a week and become part of these great groups and make friends right away who are similarly minded as you are. So that's definitely important, staying active. And I guarantee you'll be excited, you'll get involved, and you will feel great. You won't feel sad or depressed or homesick and thinking about your family all the time. When you're talking to your family and you have time, you're going to call them and talk to them about exciting things and show them cool pictures and things like that. So staying active is so important, and doing your research about the location that you're going to be placed in once you know. And don't forget, once you arrive, you'll also be told a lot of different things that you can get involved with. Okay, we're going to go over here to the work and classroom atmosphere. So we're going to talk a little bit about the importance of this, and we're going to talk about what we call here at TTS the 50-50 complex. So we'll talk about what that means. And, we're very passionate about working with teachers such as yourselves who are very excited, but are going to be professional and devoted to their job. Versus not being professional and, not really caring. So, you see a couple example photos of teachers, who are in, class. And you see someone who's sleeping, someone who really looks like they're going that extra mile to work with their kids. They have a smile on their face, they're excited. We realize that you might come to work and you might not have the best days, but maybe your kids won't have the best days either, and they're stressed out. And they have a lot of schoolwork to do, and they're learning a lot. They have pressures in their lives as well. Even if they come from really good families, it doesn't matter. So you always want to put a smile on your face. You want to treat your coworkers and your students with respect. You want to have self-respect and be someone who is punctual and does their job well, because you're representing your country, you're representing us, and you really want to put your best foot forward for yourself, especially. You'll meet a lot of teachers abroad that you'll come across, and you'll say, man, it looks like that person just rolled out of a dumpster. And it sounds bad to say it like that, but they're just careless. You know what I mean? They might go out and drink every night of the week in an irresponsible fashion. They're not in control. They're just spinning their wheels. You don't want to be that kind of person. You want to be the person that's having a great experience, doing your job well, living your life to the fullest outside of class, getting to travel and do exciting things. So you want to be that teacher on the right, that's for sure. Okay, so we're going to talk next about, being over prepared. We always want to say, trying to stay prepared when you're preparing your lessons, um, and versus winging them. A lot of teachers ask this question. This is another big question. It's like, Matt, I don't know how to teach, or I'm taking an online TESOL, TESOL course to learn how to teach English as a second to speakers of other languages before I arrive, because I don't have any teaching experience, which is always great, and we always recommend that you do that. But a lot of teachers think that they have a lot of overwhelming lessons every day. They're going to be at school for a long time. By and large, that's not the case. There's not a lot of prep work with most of our positions. Only if you're a K through 12 certified teacher with 2+ years of experience in your content area, and you've studied education, in school, you would have normal preparation like teachers would here at home. But if you're teaching ESL abroad, especially for the first time, your prep isn't going to be as overwhelming. But at the same time, you will have a little bit of preparation to do, for your next day's lessons or your lessons that week. So basically, what we're just saying is, don't wing your lessons. Don't prepare 5 minutes before the day begins. Be prepared before you leave or come into school, and give yourself enough time. And you'll learn how much time is enough once you arrive. Okay, another great point that we like to talk about is adapt your teaching style to suit your students and the culture. So you'll realize what the culture is like, and what the students are used to. You'll learn what activities are fun. What gets the kids excited. What activities don't work well. What lessons don't work well. So we'll talk. You'll learn a lot about that, and especially if you're taking an online TESOL course, you will learn in your chapters. And we have a great course to recommend that you should ask us about if you want to learn more. It's on our website. Under the importance of certifications, it's definitely something that we recommend, because you can learn a lot, unit by unit, the different components of teaching ESL. Okay, we always say the enjoyable aspect. You're going and teaching, and even if you're teaching older students, you still want to make language acquisition fun. These students are here by and large because their parents want them to be here, or they're in a public school and the government's providing it. Some of them, really enjoy, learning language, and more will. A lot of them will in your class. If you're teaching the really younger kids, they're going to be a lot easier to please. But making it enjoyable, having a smile on your face, and I guarantee you will be received very well by your students, by your helper teachers, your co-teachers, and you're going to have a great experience. If like I said, if you're pessimistic, you're not doing your job professionally, you're not going to have the greatest experience. Okay, so the next, the last part I'll talk about is the saving face. Here's another point, especially in East Asia. When some of our teachers were actually trained either in student teaching, or when they're studying their online TESOL courses, they'll learn kind of about saving face in certain cultures, where yelling at someone in front of their peers is incredibly humiliating, versus taking a student outside the classroom or after a classroom and saying, hey, you're being a little disruptive in the class, or just pointing out what they're doing wrong, versus humiliating them in front of class. It's something that's really a challenge if you do that, and it might not end up well. So in our Western cultures, you'll see teachers do that. Call out students and say, stop what you're doing right now. You're being incredibly disrespectful. So that's okay, but in East Asian culture especially, it's not okay. Okay, so if you ever wondering what some of these cultural issues or cues might be, you could always talk to a native teacher or other foreign teachers at the school, and I guarantee you they'll have some great advice for you. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is association with people. The last thing you want to know is within this slide here, in work atmosphere and even outside of work, associate yourself with positive people. Okay, you might have heard this before, but again, you're going to meet people who are spinning their wheels, who are not the type of people that you would hang out with in your home country or associate with. Don't associate yourself with those people. They're going to bring you down. They're going to bring your experience down and get you to feel sort of depressed. You don't need to feel bad for them. Associate. You can give them some advice, but associate with people who are super positive, who are having great experiences too, and you'll have a great experience. It's simple. Okay, so I'm going to go to our next slide here and talk about locations and requirements. Okay, so this could get a little bit overwhelming, so we're going to put it to you quite simply here. All right, so the number one place that we work is in China. We have international schools in China for certified teachers, so pre-K through 12, but you must be certified and by and large have 2 years of teaching experience. For example, if you have an undergraduate degree in business and you're like, well, I think I could teach, economics or social studies too, at an international school, you won't be considered. You have to have a degree in education plus 2 years to teach at any of our international schools, okay? Our ESL schools, by and large, our ESL schools are in China, in first and second tier cities. We also have SAT test prep and admissions counseling, K through 6 ESL and middle school language arts in China and Korea as well. Korea, we only have SAT test prep schools, whereas in China we have all sorts of different types of ESL you can teach. We even have an opportunity teaching hotel and restaurant management to high school students who are finishing up and going into that field. So you could teach anywhere from any type of public school, kindergarten, elementary, middle, high school. You could teach at SAT schools, test prep and language centers, and even universities. And you do not need an education degree to do that. So you consider that. And, one of the biggest requirements is that you just have a minimum of a bachelor's degree and you're from a native English-speaking country, okay? And this is an important part because it has to deal with laws, okay? Unfortunately, we've tried time and time again to get teachers who speak great English, and we want to get them jobs, but we just can't because immigration can't legally get you a visa. Some teachers fly into the country and try to work at schools, and some schools hire them, but they're by and large working there illegally. And we don't do that. We don't work with any schools that hire teachers illegally. We want you to be taken care of, get a visa, know that everything's going to be secure, it's sponsored by the school before you arrive, or if you're going quickly, you're going to get it and speak with a foreign teacher who can speak positively about the school and say, no teacher works here without a visa, you're good to go. So those are the types of schools we work with. We've never had any issues with teachers not getting visas, and we're going to prevent that at all costs. We don't work with schools that don't, okay? So you heard me say that. So you have to be a native English speaker. You have to have a minimum of a Bachelor's of Arts or a Bachelor's of Science. And we talked a little bit about the locations. We also have other locations in Turkey, Vietnam, even one country, Suriname in South America. But again, those are locations for teachers who have education degrees and experience. So if you're new to teaching, China, definitely the place you want to go, the most opportunity. It's definitely a big focus. Okay, let's talk a little bit about non-urban versus metropolitan. And it's kind of funny we use the word non-urban because we don't work with any locations that are really rural, but we do work with schools that are what we call second or third tier cities. And what does this mean? Well, we'll talk about China specifically. A first tier city in China is just a massive city in China, 15 million minimum plus. Cities like Shanghai with 23 plus million, one of the biggest cities in the world. So Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, Shenzhen, some of these cities are just massive, and that's what we call first tier city. A lot of these cities need you to have graduated 2 years ago. You don't need an education degree. You don't have to necessarily have teaching experience, but to be in one of these big cities, except for one of our programs that can sponsor your visa right out of school, by and large, you do need to have graduated 2 years ago to teach in those big cities, in the first tier cities. So let's talk about the second tier cities and the third tier cities like Tianjin, Chengdu, Wuhan, Hangzhou, Chongqing. So those different cities are what we call second and third tier cities. And very often, if you're a fresh graduate or might have graduated a year ago, you're able to obtain a visa quite easily in those different cities, and it is more of an authentic experience. And if you like kind of being more secluded in a rural type of area, some of these second and third tier cities are more traditional and will give you that taste of being very close to the countryside, but also very close to the cities as well, but not as westernized cities as the big four in China, like Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, and Shenzhen. Okay, so we will continue on to application timeline and deadlines. We're going to talk about this. You don't need to really look at the calendar, but just keep this in mind. If you're K through 12, by and large, they look to hire teachers between January to March, even in later months like May or June, to fill up positions for late August. There's a little typo. So there's some opportunities in the middle of the year, but it's very rare for K through 12 schools because the teachers stay there until the end of the year, and that's when they can renew their contracts. Sometimes there's emergencies, but very rare. Hiring seasons for ESL, SAT test prep, and missions counseling as well, you can add in there. So they hire monthly. So each month, you can see in China and Korea, they are looking to hire teachers every month. The best times to go to China and Korea are indeed in August and September, as well as March, okay? So it's essentially the beginning of the fall, okay, and then kind of right around spring, which is another good time, after the January and February New Year's in the Western calendar and the Lunar New Year in the Chinese and East Asian calendars in January and February. So March is the next greatest time to go. So March, August, some of the best times. You can just read a little bit more here before we change slides of some other timeline information. Okay, so we're going to proceed on, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the required documents. Okay, so teachers always wonder, oftentimes get nervous about what documents you need. There are other visa documents that you're going to need, but you can get very quickly. For example, unless you don't have a passport, a copy of your passport page, passport pictures, and different things like that, a visa application form. All right, those things you can print out easily or get easily within a day. But the things that take the longest are your background check and your diploma. Okay, if you don't have your diploma in hand, It can often take some time to get your diploma, get the original copy scanned, and have it in your possession to send. Same thing with your background check. Now, for China and Korea, the background check's very different. You can read about it under visa info. You should go to truthteacherservices.com and you can read about the differences and all the documents that you'll need. But the visa process, by and large, happens after you receive a job offer. So you shouldn't really worry about it until you receive a job offer. However, with Korea, Korea is a very saturated market these days, and hiring managers and principals can get very particular. So one thing that they do is they try to get teachers to get their visa documents in hand. So organize all your visa documents, and it's a little bit risky because you're not guaranteed a job. However, schools are more inclined to hire teachers in Korea who have their visa documents in hand. For every other country, okay, and China especially, you do not need to have your visa documents in hand. You can get a local police background check from the state or region or province that you're from. And then you can easily obtain your diploma, or you should be able to if it's in hand. If you haven't graduated, of course, you have to wait for it. So those are very easy things to get. And they're the two main things that you need to obtain. Okay. Again, you can go under visa info and read a little bit more if you'd like to. Now we're going to continue to next slide here, and we're just going to go to closing notes. All right, so some of the closing notes before we kind of talk about next steps. If you haven't received a TEFL certification or enrolled in one, we highly suggest you do it. Go under truthteacherservices.com/importance-of-certifications.htm, but you can just simply go under truthteacherservices.com and read under for teachers and the importance of certifications and read more about that. Definitely enroll if you haven't gotten experience, but we can talk more about that at a later time. So the next steps, we will simply say to you, we hope you enjoyed the webinar. If you want to go to the next steps and start talking about locations and potentially interviewing for schools and locations of your choice, we will follow up with you. Our hiring manager will follow up with you. Her name's Katie. And if you have any last questions, we're going to check the Q&A chat bar here on the right side, and we're going to see if you have any questions that we can answer for you. So we look forward to following up with you. We'll answer any questions, and then we will finish the webinar. Okay, so Ruth Ann, I see that you've asked that you've been a student teacher and you're currently an after-school tutor for a 5th grader, okay? You want to teach in the following locations: Germany, Thailand, Japan, Haiti, or India. Is the expat program only for recent college grads? So to answer your question, first of all, Rutana, we actually do not work in any of these countries. So I hate to tell you that, but that's definitely something that you can consider, on your own. But you're asking, is the expat program only for recent college graduates? I'm not sure what you mean about expat graduates. Expat program. The Teach Abroad program, actually teaching overseas, is it only for recent college graduates? To answer your question, it is not. It is definitely not. You have to at least have a bachelor's degree. But for example, K through 12 schools, and you're in the teaching field, K through 12 schools only accept teachers who have 2 years of teaching your content area. For example, elementary or primary years education, or secondary math, teaching middle or high school math education. So, private international schools, whether they be just private schools that have teachers from all over the world, or American international schools, or British international schools, they do desire the 2 years before they'll consider you to teach your content area. Okay, so you should type in this chat box, if you can, what your content area is, and we can talk about it, what you're getting certified to teach. But by and large, you would only be qualified to teach ESL, so English as a second language, abroad. Okay. So if you have any other questions, feel free to ask. Okay, absolutely. It's been a pleasure. We're going to follow up with you and everybody else. Thanks for joining, and we hope this information session was somewhat beneficial for you in kind of getting you started if you haven't done a whole lot of research in teaching abroad. We look forward to following up with you, and thank you so much for joining us, and happy researching in teaching abroad. Talk to you soon.